Hello and welcome to the Talking NorCal podcast, the official podcast of Active NorCal. I am your host, Zach O'Brien. With me here, as always, it's Mosquito Bite Bobby. How you doing, Bob?
I've covered mosquito bites, as you know.
Chef Brian O'Brien here. We haven't golfed in a while, so we decided to take a golfing trip last night. It's this beautiful course along the Sacramento River. What we didn't expect is around the 10th hole to be massively attacked by mosquitoes.
They did warn us when we got there.
They warned us.
They even had bug spray, but we were like, oh, we'll go hit the practice range, and then we'll come back and get that mosquito spray, which we didn't get, which was a mistake. Yes,
and it only makes sense that there was a bunch of mosquitoes out there, and it now makes sense why there was no one else on the golf course.
Well, it seemed early. It seemed early in the season for mosquitoes because I haven't really experienced it anywhere else, and it literally hadn't even occurred to us that we should be worried about it.
But it's also June and it's 110 out, so it feels like July. It's the whole everything's out of whack.
I blame the mosquitoes on my horrible round of golf, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we have a really good episode of the Talking NorCal podcast today. We have the founders of the California Adventure Academy, Ryan Spitz and Aaron Hayes. You know Ryan from his 330-mile run from Humboldt to Mount Shasta. He was also our first ever guest on this podcast. So he is coming back to talk about this new school that they created during quarantine, which is actually really cool. We're also going to go over the news of the week, and we're going to close out by going through some legends that we actually missed. There's a couple in Lassen that I just found out about, and I can't believe we missed it on our Legends podcast. So we're going to finish out by talking about some legends of Lassen Volcanic National Park, of which there are apparently many, and I did not know this going in, and I'm supposed to be the NorCal Legends guy, and I didn't know any of this.
I do have an opinion about some of them, so looking forward to talking about them.
Me too. So make sure you subscribe to the Talking NorCal podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We'll post the highlights on Active NorCal, and you can see the full clip of these episodes on the Talking NorCal YouTube page. That's it. Let's hop right into this glorious episode with the Tahoe's Hella NorCal.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to do kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.
It's a glorious day, and here in Northern California, a huge day, maybe the biggest day that we've seen in the past 18 months.
15 months, I think, is actually accurate.
A year and a half. Oh, yeah, I guess it's
started
in
15.
March. Whatever,
so.
I keep saying a year and a half. Today, and you're going to be listening to this on Thursday when it comes out, or maybe even later, but today we are recording this on Tuesday, June 15th. California's back open, baby.
We're back. Let's go.
No masks. We are in Midtown Sacramento, and the masks are off. There's people everywhere. The bars are packed. The restaurants are fully booked. We are absolutely back. And quite frankly, the only thing that hasn't changed is when you go to the doctor or the hospital, you got to keep wearing a mask. We might adopt that forever. Who knows? Public transportation, you wear a mask. That was the only thing that applied to me.
Yeah, and then every business has the opportunity to enforce their own rules, But
correct.
And the big thing with this is that California is easing their standards, but they're also, leaving it into the hands of the individual counties to kind of make their own restrictions. And those restrictions will absolutely be followed. If they're more rigorous than the California standards, then those will be the standards, but there has yet to be a county to adapt stricter standards than the California standards currently are. So right now, until things change, everybody's kind of mask off and we're all back. Every county.
We're back. I can't wait. I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm hopefully the steam room's going to be open because I haven't steamed in a long time. That's going to feel good. I'm going to go to the grocery store. No mask. I'm going to maybe cough a little bit and not feel weird that people look at you.
That's weird.
I'm joking, by the way, but it's all this pent up energy that we have from being limited from what we can do. And look, I know there's people out there that haven't worn masks the whole time, and that's whatever. But we have, and so we are glad to get back to some normalcy.
I do still have a mask in my back pocket, if I'm being honest. Like, it's kind of part of my, as I'm leaving the house, just kind of throw it in the back pocket. Who knows? You might need it. Have a spare in your car. You never know when you're going to have to make a quick trip to the emergency room. And
True.
Need one. I'm sure that they'll have enough disposable masks at hospitals. But it does feel good. I remember what I was doing on March 13th of 2020 when this all started, and we all thought, whoa, we got a week or two vacation here. This is going to be awesome.
A week or two
here
vacation.
We go. 15 months later, things are finally starting to get back to normal.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, and it felt like a vacation, even for those first couple months.
I called you. I literally called you from my work, and I'm like, bro, let's book some active NorCal trips. Let's shoot some video content. Let's take advantage of this time that we all have off. Well,
do you remember those first 2 months where it's like, hey, let's sit at home and have a couple drinks and watch something? It actually felt like a vacation. Now, that vacation ended up lasting for a long time, and
a lot longer than we anticipated, a lot longer than we wanted to.
It turned into depression for some people. It turned into health issues for a lot of people, obviously.
Outside of COVID-19.
Outside of COVID, inside COVID, every which way. It was just a really hard year for everyone. But we made it. And not to mention that, all the businesses, I'm really excited for them to be able to welcome everyone back. I'm excited to sit in a packed restaurant and order up a bunch of appetizers and just go have some fun with it.
The unique thing with this story is the office working kind of, and when you work in an office building, like, every company can set their own kind of standards, and it's also like you're free to kind of walk around maskless in these areas if you're vaccinated, but even asking somebody if they're vaccinated isn't necessarily an appropriate thing.
No.
You have the HIPAA violations of the world where it's really not anybody's business to know other people's medical history, but in this this particular occasion, it kind of is. And so I have a nurse friend who posted on Facebook this morning, like, I've been in this for 20 years, and just asking people to show proof of vaccination does, to me, seem like it's breaking HIPAA violations. I don't want to get political about this at all. I do see that it's harder for certain people to kind of open up a little bit more, but it is the California saying, literally, you can do the honor system. You don't have to have somebody standing at the door and bouncing and saying, let me see your vaccination card. Just take their word for it, and I think that's what most companies are going to do.
If you're not vaccinated, that's up to you. I am. You are. We are happy to do it, and we are now not going to worry about anything, both for ourselves and the people who are around us. You mentioned the businesses. We're actually here in a big office here in Sacramento, and it's been so great because all of these office buildings that are sort of around us are now filling back up. People are coming back. They're renting them. The owner of this place was, it was devastated when everyone left the office. Everyone's like, we're working from home. We're not going to pay rent anymore. And thank God they were able to come out of it. And I saw him yesterday. I'm like, are we masking off tomorrow? He's like, oh yeah, we are masking off.
Damn straight we are.
So it's just a happy day. It's sunny outside. And if it weren't for this freaking drought, we would be totally ecstatic. And now I guess we're just back to our normally scheduled program of wildfires. So, but for now, we're going to enjoy this. And hopefully we can enjoy it with a little lottery win.
I'm feeling lucky.
So we wanted to talk about this vaccination lottery because this is I think the only time we'll ever see this in our life. And Bob and I are entered into the vaccination lottery here in California. So what can we win?
So there's a lot of things. When you talk about the lottery, you can win vacations, you can win $50,000 cash. There's a lot of things. But there are some perks to being a vaccinated Californian on June 15th that are outside of this drawing. And the two that really stick out to me have to do with Mexican food. That being Taco Bell and Chipotle. Now, on June 15th, Taco Bell will be giving out one free seasoned beef nacho cheese Doritos Locos Taco per customer to show their COVID-19 vaccination card. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Who doesn't want a nacho cheese Doritos Locos Taco?
I don't know what it is, and I haven't had Taco Bell in probably a decade.
Well, it's the taco, the crunchy taco that has a Dorito shell.
Okay.
Yeah, the nacho cheese.
I gotcha.
And then Chipotle, trying to kind of even the stakes, I guess. Chipotle will thank vaccinated Californians on June 15th by giving out free queso blanco with the purchase of any regular menu item. Who doesn't like queso? Love me some queso. So shout out Chipotle, shout out Taco Bell, the fast food Mexican empires that they both are, offering free food to vaccinated Californians today just to encourage it. But yeah, I mean, the big winners and the big prizes are definitely going to come from this state lottery.
Yeah, I see all these sporting teams are giving discounts for proof of vaccination on their swag.
Shout out Clippers, shout out Golden State Warriors, shout out Lakers, Sparks, Galaxy, Kings.
Apparently, we didn't win the $50,000.
Yeah, they're still pulling.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it just keeps going.
I'm trying to figure out how they notify you because like you're automatically entered when you get vaccinated, but how do they like reach out to you? I think I did give my contact information, but I don't see Gavin Newsom.
They know everything.
To shoot me a text message. Hey, buddy, you want a free vacation?
I see people like mad online, like, "Oh, how do they know I got it?" It's like they know, and you know. By the way, you carry around a smartphone with all the apps that follow you all day. Let's not make a huge deal out of it.
One thing that I did today, and I think it's a good idea because of the people that are actually going to be asking for proof of vaccination. If you just take a picture of it on your phone and you favorite that picture, it's going to go in your favorites. That's what I did.
That's a great idea.
I went back to the pictures, the picture I took of my vaccination card, added it as a favorite so that it's there. I can pull it up quickly so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
You think they'll take it if I like tattoo it on my back?
I actually think I've seen that done. In
Really?
fact, I know I've seen it done.
Yeah, because for one, when this started, I forgot my mask everywhere. I could never remember it, and
I think that was
I lost
everyone.
them all over the place. It was another thing that I had to worry about. I worry about three things: my keys, my wallet, my phone. Having an extra thing is just really hard. So, but now it's my vaccination card that I can't remember anywhere. So, but the biggest prize is the $1.5 million grand prize, and it doesn't say when they're going to announce that, but I could win that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get $50 gift cards, $50,000 cash prizes, vacations.
Vacation. I watched the trip to the Laker game. Boom.
Let's go. Next season, obviously.
It is an interesting time that we'll probably never experience again in our lifetime. So I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it while we can.
And honestly, I've been meaning to buy a new Lakers jersey. 15% off.
Yeah.
Till the 20th. It's 15 on the Team LA stores at Staples Center. It's June 15th through the 20th. 15% off with proof of vaccination.
Yeah. Do it to it. So anyway, we are back. We're having fun with this. Everyone seems to have a smile on their face, even though we're a little weathered. We're all a little tired, a little bit fatter, right?
Oh, I'm Fat Bob still. Well, I mean, Fat Bob is he's coming and going. Today is weigh day. I weigh myself on the 1st and the 15th of every month. 182 square, which means I've lost about 1.5 pounds in the last 2 weeks. So we're moving in the right direction.
I'm down about 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to keep going hard. I'm going to lose like 20 pounds. But
sure you are.
I am.
Let's go.
You watch.
All right. We are marking it June 15th. Zach's going to lose 20 pounds.
I'm going to lose more.
Mark it.
I already lost 10. Anyway. So that's it. We are back. California's back. NorCal's back. We're having fun with this. Now let's get into what can only probably be the depressing news of the week.
Well, I mean, this week isn't actually as bad depressing-wise. This first story is really, really cool, actually. Fully intact airplane found at the bottom of Folsom Lake. Thing is 50 years old and fully intact. The fact that we're just finding this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so there was a crew from this company called Seafloor Systems, and I think they do like radar scans, underwater, and since Folsom Lake is so shallow right now, they were able to detect this, object down at the bottom of the lake. So they sent cameras down 160 feet below the surface, and they got pictures of a fully intact airplane. Now, it's not known if this is true or not. I think we can probably say certainty it probably is true. There was a plane crash in 1965 on New Year's Day that crashed right near Folsom Dam into the lake. The 3 people on the plane were never recovered, and they think it is that plane.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what I don't understand is how that plane went down. It said like
a midair collision.
Yeah, but with what? What do you?
Maybe another. I don't know.
There's
Maybe another
planes
plane
flying around
could have been a
Folsom
bird.
Lake in 1965. Bird actually definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
But they also named this as being fully intact plane. Usually, if you're gonna have a collision in air, there's gonna be at least some damage, and there's gonna be fully intact doesn't necessarily mean you've collided with something midair. But if you see the images on the article on ActiveNorCal.com, clearly it looks like a full plane, both full wings, the tail, and then you can see the image. They're going to have to absolutely explore this more, right? They're going to have to go down. I mean, if those 3 bodies were never recovered, they're probably still in there. And if this plane is so deep down in the water, we talked about kind of the frozen bodies in Lake Tahoe. These got to be at least partially preserved, right?
Maybe. Folsom Lake is much, much warmer than Lake Tahoe.
Right, but 300 feet down is, that's a pretty...
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's definitely they're going to go down and get that aircraft, I assume. Not only for historic reasons and for educational reasons, but also because it's trash at the bottom of the lake.
I don't think they're going to go get it.
You don't think so?
Do you have any idea how big of an undertaking it would be to
Yeah,
do
you
that?
might be right. Yeah, you could
I think
be right.
that they'll send down cameras and they'll get the tail number and they'll make sure everything is all what they think it is. And I'm sure if it's easy to fish it out, they will, but I really don't see that. I mean, I'm trying to think of logistically. What do? You put in like some inside the plane itself, something that like a raft that will inflate and then like will raise it to the top. I mean,
You
there's
send
not a lot
down
of
a crane.
300 feet into the water.
It's only 160 right now because the lake
Well,
is at
yeah.
40%. So it's 100. So you send down a scuba diver with a crane. You hook, although it'll probably fall apart as it's coming up, I would assume. I don't know, but it's more just like cool to find something that's been lost for 55
That
years.
no one knew was there,
Well, they knew it was there, but they didn't know it was sitting there intact, right?
And it literally looks like it landed. Like it's it's exactly how it should be. Almost looks like it landed at the bottom of the lake there. And so really, really cool story. Whenever you see stories like this, I always go to the pollution aspect of it where, you're going to have the fuel, you're going to have all of the oil and things like that are going to be leaked into the water. So that sucks. But I don't know. This is a cool story. I mean, obviously it didn't mean to crash and die 50 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was devastating for the people back then, but it's really cool now. It's like our like Titanic or something, So I really enjoyed
Pearl Harbor.
This story. Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, Pearl Harbor, how you can go and do a tour of all of the wreckage and things. We did that when we were kids.
Did we?
In Hawaii.
I don't remember that.
Honolulu, shout out.
Yeah, but cool story. More of the history of NorCal.
Second story is very similar. Different form of vehicle, different
I don't
lake.
know.
Drunk
Similar.
driver gets stuck at the bottom of Crowley Lake.
So God, this person's an idiot.
I know.
So this person, and they just say it was a male, was driving on basically the sand of Crowley Lake, which is near Mammoth Lakes, California. And I have to assume the car just sort of drifted into the water, like maybe caught some, soft sand, I guess, and just sort of slipped into the water. And the person got a DUI because they were drunk when they were doing it.
Do you think that there's any like fines associated with the like environmental contributors?
Of course.
Like what? Like I've never heard of that. Like you hear stories about this all the time, but they don't really talk about. And this guy has the DUI that he now has to deal with, which is incredibly expensive in and of itself. Not that I know from personal experience, but the biggest for me impact of this accident is what the things inside his vehicle will do negatively to Crowley Lake.
I'm assuming they're pulling that thing out.
Oh,
if they haven't already.
I'm sure it already is pulled out. I mean, you can see it. It's not like it's in the middle of the lake. It's, it's just right on the edge. You can just get a tow truck there, and they've done that many, many times. But just how much of the gas in that tank and all of the oil have leaked in and will, harm the wildlife in the local area.
Just like the balls on some people to be driving on the sand at Lake Cali drunk. Like, why? What are you doing? I don't understand it.
No, I mean, like, getting drunk at the lake is something that I'm okay
Certainly.
with. I mean, like, that's part of what we love about Northern California. But you got to do it responsibly. You're not driving a car. You're not driving a boat. You have adequate transportation in and out of lake. And so, yeah, and if you want to get nice and saucy on the lake, by all means, but don't drive. Don't do stupid stuff that affects not only, the local community, but also the local wildlife as well.
I wonder if this was like a young person.
I'm not assuming this was like a 65-year-old man. I could be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah, I could see either or. But
I mean, this article is like 37 words long. Like there's not a lot of information here.
Yeah, they didn't provide much because they're not going to just, give away the person's name and everything.
I'm trying to figure out what kind of car it is. It's between. It looks like either a PT Cruiser or like a Mercedes like 2-door silver car. I don't know. Doesn't look like an SUV is kind of what I'm trying to say.
It's a car.
Right.
It looks more like not like a Mitsubishi, maybe like an Acura or something. I don't see Mercedes. I don't think anyone's driving their Mercedes on the beach of Lake Crowley.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is it's definitely not an SUV. An SUV might have probably been able to navigate that area a little bit better than a car. And so, whatever. I'm just going to call it a PT Cruiser because it looks dumb.
It does look dumb. And, well, this person doesn't have to worry about it anymore because it's clearly ruined.
Well, they got a lot of other things to worry about at this point.
It's clearly ruined. And, look, hey, guys, make good decisions under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I got on that story. Anything else you want to say?
No, that's it. There's not much else to say.
All right, next story. The Karuk Tribe declares climate emergency in the Klamath Basin. I didn't know a tremendous amount about this tribe. I know we've written an extensive amount about them with Active NorCal with regards to their kind of opinion and approach to fire. This is a different story because it's what they're trying to do is they're trying to help the local fish community because of the environmental factors that are hurting us all at this point.
Well, this is the tribe scratching and clawing to get those dams removed from the Klamath River.
Successfully. I mean, it hasn't actually been removed, but we're moving in that direction.
Nearly successfully.
Right.
Literally generations of Karuk. How'd you pronounce it?
Karuk.
Yeah, that's like...
I don't know if I'm doing it right. I apologize if I'm not.
The Karuk tribe. That literally generations of them have been fighting. This is the lifeblood of their tribe. It's a sacred river to them. And so hopefully, in the next couple of years, we're going to see a tremendous, a great ceremony of removing those dams and seeing it back to its original flourishing river. But right now, because of drought, because of the dams, there's this huge juvenile salmon die-off that's happening there. And the one that the tribe called a catastrophic blow to the fishery and the Karuk culture. Now, the reason why they're basically saying this is a climate crisis. This is a climate change emergency. And because we've seen this happen with these dams for 100 years, this is worse. So it's, they made a very strong statement saying we have to do something to help this river.
I mean, they're saying that it's going to basically wipe out an entire generation of these fish, that sounds so crazy to me. Like an entire, let's say Gen X as a generation would be knocked out just, in the kind of 1, 2, 3 year drought period is insane to me to think about. And they talk about the water. This tribe talks about the water in the area as important to them as the air that they breathe. This water is so sacred to the area, the local community, the outdoor. But as a tribe, it is something that is so sacred to them. They refer to it as sacred as the air that they breathe. These are the kind of things that I love to see.
And this isn't the first fish die-off that we've seen. We've seen massive salmon die-offs on the Klamath River basin because of these dams, and the water gets warm and it's not flowing, and so it creates diseases.
It creates an environment where these bacteria that are negative and these diseases that hurt these fish populations thrive in. So you have less water, less flow, hotter water, which is just so ideal for the just spread of these viruses, these disease, and letting these parasites live in this area. So, the increase of flow will move more water, which will cool down the water, and that will make it harder for these invasive species of parasites or what have you to live, and it will make it a much more thriving environment for these local fish populations.
It's going to be so fascinating when these dams are removed, because it's all this crap is going to be, brushed out to sea, and it's going to take some time for everything to flow. There's the sediment that's been at the bottom of these lakes basically for 100 years that has to flow out. But as we've seen in other massive dam removals, it actually happens pretty quickly. The power of nature really cleanses it.
We saw a lot of that with everyone kind of not leaving their house. A lot of things in nature kind of came back to nature.
Right.
Now, outside of water in Northern California, that helps do that. But a lot of these, people were talking about in Yosemite, seeing so much more wildlife out, nature becoming nature a little bit more. I also am very excited to see all of these dams removed. Honestly, the day that they're going to be removed, I want to see what that flow looks like just watching the water levels rise, and
the water's going to turn a completely different color.
It's going to be so cool, though.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time, and so shout out to this tribe. They're doing everything that they can to help everything in nature in this area. They're really trying to help. Fire, water, fish, everything.
The dam removal is set to begin in 2023. I don't know how long it's set to take. Hopefully it's quick. It will
what you're about to say probably doesn't. What you're about to say,
it will be the largest dam removal project in the history of the world.
I can't see going quickly.
No, but I think you'd be surprised. Anyway, and according to the Karuk Tribe, and I quote, this is from Chairman Russell Atterbury, who is nicknamed Buster, "We are praying the fish can hang on until then."
Shout out, Buster.
I'm not. He must go by Buster, but I wasn't sure why they included that his nickname.
Why wouldn't you?
Into the press release. But we are praying the fish can hang on until then, and I think that's really important because we are only looking at 2 years, and that's how bad the fish decline has been on the Klamath River basin.
Yet another story of why we need water in the valley.
Rain dance! Let it rain!
Let it rain!
I was not planning on using those today, but I did, and it was natural, and I'm not forcing them on anybody, and it made you smile and not annoyed, so
it did.
Successful.
It did make me smile.
Okay, the last story does have something to do with water, a little bit of a different story, but something that we've kind of been following for several episodes here. Point Reyes installs water troughs to help thirsty and dying tule elk.
Yeah, these tule elk are one of the largest herds in California, and they are struggling. Much of the resources of Point Reyes is going towards these cattle farmers, which we've talked about ad nauseum. And because of that, 152 tule elk died in Point Reyes last year. So they are struggling. So back in December of 2020, these wildlife activists actually snuck in these water troughs against the National Park Service wishes to help these animals. They knew they were dying. They're watching them. They're getting really skinny. They're getting bad. So finally, the National Park Service actually installed these water troughs that will be constantly replenished, and they're going to keep them there until it starts raining heavily again, hopefully in the winter. Hopefully we get an early winter. But it is a huge project that has been a long time coming, quite frankly.
3 water troughs that is going to be continuously replenished by a 2,000-gallon tank located on Pierce Point Road. To me, what this makes me think of is like, just imagine just being like in the desert and just completely thirsty and there's nothing. And all you see is like, you see oasis of water, and then all of a sudden you stumble upon literally something that is meant for you to drink out of it with 2,000 gallons of water. I mean, these two, when they actually come across this is going to be really great for them. And we do hope this helps.
Yes. And anyone that hasn't followed, the National Park Service basically is allowing these cattle ranchers to be in this national park, and they take away a lot of resources from the wildlife, with which Point Reyes is a huge wildlife area. They also create a large amount of poop, of feces, that flows into every area of the park, creating E. coli issues and basically putting toxins in the area. And the National Park Service actually renewed their leases for these cattle ranchers, even against a lot of people's wishes. And they said they're actually going to limit the amount of tule elk in the area. And it ended up, they were giving out hunting licenses to go kill these things, to limit the population of them. And it turned out the drought ended up killing them anyway. So it's really weird. They didn't even have to do any work. Like, they thought they'd have to go out and kill these tule elk because they're flourishing out there. And it just so happens that the herd's limitation to resources along with the drought ended up killing them anyway. So, by the way, Marin County in May declared a drought emergency. The area is at this point seeing its lowest rainfall in 140 years.
It's insane. Yeah, we talked about it last time, how this is the driest this area of the world has ever been. I did see another article that said it's been 1,500 years.
It's possible. I mean, it's just kind of impossible to know.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure that there are scientific ways of really knowing about it, but it just brings to light like how insane of a drought season we are going through and have been for several years. And really, at this point, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's not like there's not a lot of rain in the current forecast. And so we can only hope that maybe next year we get more, or maybe we start to get the winter rains in like maybe early October instead of late November, and prevent some of these wildfire seasons. But as far as the tule elk, like obviously I love local animal prides, herds, whatever you want to, and all of them. And so if we can preserve and help them maintain in any way, I love this story. I think it's great. It takes a lot of resources to do something like this. This probably cost a good amount of money. And so I appreciate this. And so I just wanted to say that.
Yes. And hopefully these elk have some sort of reprieve for now, and we can keep the herd somewhat, at a decent population for the year.
We might be this herd's biggest fan. Like we talked about.
No. You need to actually go and look at these activists online. Like there are a couple Instagram pages that are every single day that I don't know if it's like their full-time job, if they're getting money donated to them or whatever. These people are so passionate about the wildlife in Tule, or not in Tule, in Point Reyes. So yes, we talk about it a lot, but that's because I know that there's a ton of people who are passionate about it.
I am too. Shout out. And that does it for the NorCal Notes of the Week.
Okay, that does it. Now let's hop into our fascinating interview with Ryan Spitz and Aaron Hayes. They are the founders of the California Adventure Academy. It's a new school in Redding that is really doing some different things and using the outdoors as their classroom in a lot of ways. So let's go to Ryan and Aaron.
All right, we'd like to now welcome on two very special guests. They are the founders of the California Adventure Academy. We have our old friend Ryan Spitz and Aaron Hayes on the show. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
So Ryan, not only are you the guy that ran, 330 miles from Humboldt to Mount Shasta, and you did your bike ride for 700 miles from the Oregon border to the San Francisco Bay. You're also our first ever interview here on the Talking NorCal podcast. It's so good to have you back on. It's been forever.
Yeah, I know. A lot's changed.
A lot has changed. So tell me what you guys are up to with this California Adventure Academy.
Yeah, so it's been a wild journey. So, pre-COVID, when I was doing a lot of the adventure tourism stuff, the California Tamed and races and bikepacking, last July really put all that to a hard stop. So California Tamed is still the longest race, continental US, that's never happened. I've had to cancel it twice now because of COVID and because of fires. So when, adventure tourism and that space does not play well together with what COVID has and some of the mandates that, have come from fruition from that. Found my place, as a business owner where now everything was at a standstill. And then as a father, so I have 4 kids, 7-year-old boy, 5-year-old boy, 3-year-old girl, and 1-year-old girl. On the education realm, found a place in a situation that a lot of the mandates and things that were coming out that the schools were having to adhere to wasn't really a huge advocate that I wanted that environment for my son. So really had a dynamic where we pulled our son from school. We now just became a homeschool family. And then pretty quickly with my wife's mom's friends, realizing that there were kind of 2 buckets of parents that we were connected to, either families that just became homeschool families but had no idea what the heck that meant, or they've been homeschool families, but ironically enough, living in Northern California, there aren't really that many socialization, outdoor recreation programs where these kids can get together and do life together. So felt very strongly on my heart in July that I needed to step in and provide a solution for that. So, Aaron and I have been friends for, 3.5 years. He was actually there at the start line when I ran the 330. You'll learn more about him, but he comes, from the education space, both as a teacher, as a consultant. So as kind of had a whiteboard scenario of, okay, if we were to totally erase, and redefine what is the best way to raise up our youth, what would that look like? So you have the educational realm, insert adventure programming, creative programming, and then more character development, life skills components to it. That really, if you want to really unleash the full potential of what our kids need and how we can successfully launch them into the world, kind of checking each one of those pillars. So that really is what birthed the California Adventure Academy. And in 6 weeks from idea to launching, built the Academy. So we started in September going K through 8. We started with 44 kids. We grew to 77 kids in January. And now we've added high school for the fall, and we have over 200 kids signed up and reserved for the fall. So it's been an intense 10 months.
I just want to interrupt and say, okay, like when you become a business partner, choose business partners that do things that are well beyond what you thought was possible. So like whatever grit that Ryan used to run from the ocean to Mount Shasta in 5 days, just know that that's also how he does business. And so when he called me and said, hey, I want to start a school, and he knew that I had been working as a school consultant and had done things like this in the past. And he said, I want to start a school. And I said, amazing. What are you thinking? 2022, 2023? And he's like, I'm thinking in 6 weeks. And so I was like, dude, are you driving to my house right now? Or like, what's happening? So that first session where we were like really mapping out the school was totally crazy, but it was also really exciting because that blend of experiential learning. I mean, we've got like 10 adventure buckets that we've created for these kids: archery and hiking and sustainability farming and equestrian and paddling. And, I mean, it's like we had so many cool buckets, but then recognizing that experiential hands-on learning and then combining that with education doesn't make school less than anymore. It makes school absolutely magnetic. Like the kids at the academy this year, they were smiling. They were happy. We have parents, our school year just ended last week. We have parents who have had their kids in public education for their entire lives that are messaging us and saying things like, we've never, ever had our kids finish the school year sad because they couldn't go back to school the next week. And so it's just been this completely, I mean, you guys, it's like Active NorCal or, Talking NorCal. When you talk about what do we want for the next generation, we want kids who are lifelong learners, and we want kids who have a lifelong passion, care, and concern for our environment and for our communities that see it as a way of life. And so our kids this year, it's like whatever started in Ryan that we like came together and put our heads on, it has blown up, and our kids are like on fire, and our families are too. It's pretty wild.
Which, to give some clarity, so, what are we? I know, it's a big question on, are you a school? Are you not a school? Are you a charter school? So formally, again, to what started from COVID, which now we're beyond COVID and what we're doing, this is how we need to raise our youth. We are formally a homeschool collaborative with a kick-ass learning center and adventure and creative programs. So that's where we hire, we set up all of our families. So they submit affidavits, they're private homeschool families, but then we hire professional teachers to be our tutors in the learning center. So that's where all of the academics and facilitation is had. And then again, the best way to actually and truly learn and understand something is not just by memorizing it to take a test, but it's the application on why is it important? What's the relevance of it? So that's where insert adventure programming and creative programming. So you're spending your time in the learning center, doing academics, and now we're going to go out into the world and actually apply what we just learned and use it and love it and do the hard things and build grit, resiliency, relationships. And just that whole model has been such an exciting thing to just see the immediate impact that it's had on these kids on, they start in July, maybe a little timid, maybe not so confident, have never had an opportunity to do these adventurous type things or have hated school and education. And now we finish the year and there's so much passion for curiosity, both in the classroom and just out in nature. Where we live, it is such a gem of different dynamics that you can do, from fishing, fly fishing, climbing, paddling, you name it. Northern California, you can do it.
You can do it, and you can do it within a 10 to 15 minute drive in almost any direction. And I think that's one of the things is like being a public school teacher and educator is, especially for our families that have lived here their whole lives. There's kids that have never been to Whiskeytown Lake.
Yeah.
There's kids who've never seen the ocean. There's kids who've never been to Lassen Park, and you're like, how in the heck do you live here and not experience these things? So for our kids, that experiential learning at the academy has been, honestly, it's been life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it goes to this conventional wisdom that we've had for generations in America, where you have to memorize things and you have to take tests, and that's how kids learn. That's probably why I didn't finish high school, is because that's not how I learned. That I'm more hands-on. And anybody that ever goes to, say, Whiskeytown or Lassen knows that, it's beautiful, it's awesome to hike around, but those are huge educational opportunities. I mean, we all learn so much from going to those places. And so I completely understand what you guys are doing, especially for maybe like not only just regular kids and parents who say want a different education for their kids, but maybe a kid who doesn't really fit into that box of the normal system, right?
We've had a lot of families that have come and, their kids get these labels, they're ADD or, like the kid is struggling in school. And I think that's part of the reason why is like our education system has failed kids in a lot of ways, because there's a whole group of human beings that don't need a label, but it's almost like created by God to be active and to be moving and to be hands-on. But the problem is in the United States, we have kind of taken those people and pushed them to the side. Like we focus a lot on ideas, but we don't have a lot of those hands-on jobs like we used to, the farming and the construction. You go talk to business owner, go talk to a plumber, go talk to a contractor. They can't find young people to go and do the work. And it's not because there's not young people who don't want to be hands-on. It's because we've kind of moved those skill sets and we've moved the hands-on learning and we've made it something that only a few people get, if you're lucky at all, that your school even has it. So this whole hands-on experiential learning, it's taken kids that would be labeled as ADD, and yes, they do sometimes have trouble focusing, but it's given them an outlet so that our kids have so much fun and engagement in our experiential, like hands-on learning, that by the time they're getting to the classroom part, they're totally digging in. And, it's because they see the relevance. And this is a huge place where I think what the Academy's doing is absolutely innovative, is that if kids don't see why it matters, that's what relevance means. I know why it matters. If kids don't see why learning matters, they won't pay attention. But the cool part with all this immersive experiential learning that we've created is the kids see why it matters, so that when they get into our classroom, our learning center environment, where we give them educational support, they totally come alive, because now they can see the connection. And once they see that connection, then you can raise the rigor, right? And so what happens in public school, you try and raise the rigor, but no one knows why it matters. Everyone's like, why do I have to learn this? It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. I mean, and just you think of like all the entitlement that, we've been operating with the generations, or just lack of appreciation for nature and for the outdoors. But by being able to provide these experiences for the kids, for them to see what they can do in nature and all the opportunities and just life that it brings, that in itself from a sustainability lens has been just so cool to see these kids really grasp and take hold of that.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, let's say you're talking to a parent, a parent says, what does my, sixth grader's week look like? How many hours are in the classroom or your guys' facility? How many are at the lake? Like, what exactly does a week look like?
Yep. I just want to say one thing before Ryan answers this question. Globally, the United States is not at the top of the pile for our education system. What we've
not even
done
close.
Not even close. But what we've done in America is we've applied an industrial revolutionary thought to education, which is all we need to do is add more hours and just work harder, and that will solve the problem of learning at a higher level. But what we've proven is that adding more hours of kids' butts in the seat doesn't actually produce higher academic outcome, because we've discovered is that people need space, and they need free space and open space to actually engage the creative part of your brain. And when you engage the creative part of your brain, that's actually where innovation happens. That's actually where learning happens. But what we do is we treat the kids like mini university students, and we put them in seats and expect them to be there with little recess breaks in between, and somehow keep them in for 6 to 8 hours, and then hope that they're going to produce higher test scores. But it doesn't work. And there's a lot of other countries around the world that have discovered this. So their kids only go to school for a couple of hours a day. Now, I've also been a public school teacher, and I love teachers. So I'm not bagging on teachers at all. I still work with schools and try and help schools as much as I can. I still do consulting in schools. However, I will say a lot of teachers spend a majority of their time managing their classroom, not necessarily teaching. So when Ryan answers this question, I want you to hear the context of how we have created this academy, because we've created the academy where there's not necessarily, if you compare us to a regular school environment, we don't have as much in-class seat time as a regular class. But because we have the creative space, what happens is our kids, we're discovering, are maximizing when they get into the classroom because they've had space to get curious. And when you're curious, you learn more.
Yep. Yeah. So, with that, again, it goes for full quality time dynamic to it. So typical week. So again, knowing we have 2 tracks. So we have our all-in track. So that's our kids who are doing the learning center with us, the education plus the adventure creative, or we just have the adventure only track. So you're doing school yourself. You're just with us for the skills-based program.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. So for the all-in one, so you're doing everything with us. So it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 2:30. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 10 is learning center time. So that's where all the school's happening. And then at 10 o'clock, hopping on a bus. And from 10 to 2:30 is now adventure programming or creative. So whether it's rock climbing one week, literature and writing the next, or fishing one week and media graphic design the next, you're kind of rotating through that. And then Tuesday, Thursdays is the majority of learning center. So from 8 to noon is teaching time. And then noon to 2:30, that's where it's now a study hall, a character development workshop, or some of our life skills projects happening. So
Yeah,
again, because our kids are, yeah.
Well, I assume you guys, the state or whatever, it probably makes you, have certain ways you have to go about teaching kids, right?
Yeah. So like the curriculum we have, is state accredited curriculum. And then just given, because we use homeschool curriculum. So again, it's more efficient and effective as far as just the knowledge and educational components that we're teaching our kids. That's where we're able to have, because our kids aren't distracted and they're fully filled and excited for the adventure creative days. When we get into the learning center, it is just hammering out the work. They're comprehending what they're getting taught. And then now, not only that, but because we're not so focused on state testing to get our funding, because we're not a public charter school, we can now spend the time teaching the curriculum that's important. And now let's go apply it in the adventure and creative programs.
And teach for mastery. I mean, the state standards are valuable. So I don't want to say they're not. There's been a lot of work done to go, hey, what do the kids really need to know? But there's a difference between teaching kids to be test takers versus teaching kids to be decision makers. We need kids who grow up to be decision makers, not just test takers. I need kids to go out into a complex world and be able to evaluate things and make a powerful decision. So if you're going to do that, you actually need to teach kids for mastery, not just to be able to answer a multiple choice test. And that's not a dig on teachers, but it is a dig
on the system.
It's a dig on the system because the system has so many hoops that you have to jump through that it's not actually possible for teachers to talk about character development, for teachers to talk about what does it look like to actually go out and get and keep a job, and it's not that teachers don't care, but how do you even get to that when you're lucky if you get through all of the state standards? Now, I look out at the kids of this generation and the kids that are being raised right now, and I actually look out and go, the number one thing that they need to learn is actually social skills. It's actually, they call it social emotional learning, but we need kids who can go out and function as good human beings. And unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of that. And we're not seeing the higher level thinking where you can be around someone who has a differing idea than you and still be able to function and have a healthy relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, so one thing, yeah.
Well, no, I
Go for it.
1,000% get that. And I actually like this, not having to spend a certain amount of hours every day, a certain amount of hours every single day in this seat, right? Because you look at us, millennials, and even the people behind us. We don't necessarily want to sit on a desk for 8 hours a day. We get our stuff done, and then we move on,
and
right?
You shouldn't. Yeah. And I think that's one of the exciting things is, knowing, and now we're bringing it to high school now, like the way that you learn understanding, grit, resiliency, gratitude, appreciation, like, real things that are going to set you up for success in life. Those are all through experiences. It's not through hearing about it, reading about it, memorizing it. It's through experiences. So, for that, and I think even probably you'd relate from a high school standpoint, there's not one path to success, but our system puts a lot of weight and emphasis on the path to success is college, is the corporate world, where it undervalues different trades, different artisan tracks. So for us in high school, really flipping that on its head on, our whole goal with being youth focused is to set up the individual kid, human being. What are you good at, and what do you want to do, and what can you take your passion and trade and go make change in the world? Yeah. So for us, that's now, freshman year. So academics aside, freshman years are artisan track. So that's where you're getting all these artisan experiences. We're having workshops come in so people can fully see, if that's you, this is what it looks like. Sophomore years are entrepreneur track. So again, it's all these workshops and experiences with entrepreneurs on what it looks like to start a business and understand business acumen and financial wellness. Our junior year is the expert track. So that's more the college bound folks. So if you're CPA, nurse, doctor, engineer, that's now going to be full of workshops into that lens. Our senior year, we're tagging it carve your course. So pending which one of those pillars really spoke to you and you're like, hey man, that is me. That's now your mentorship, internship year where you're now fully diving into that. So by the time you graduate high school, if I'm college bound, I'm on that. If I'm an artisan, but now I've been able to build rapport and relationships to have the business acumen on, no, it's not just a hobby. I can actually monetize this and make a career and living out of this. You're diving into that. If you're an entrepreneur, you're building out your business plan and pitching to investors when you're going to graduate. So again, you're speaking to the individual and fully launching them in a way that they need to be launched.
And this is the issue is like, if you're listening right now, how many kids or parents or friends do you know that have had kids graduate after 13 years of education? You think kindergarten through your senior year in high school, and then fail to launch successfully into adulthood. If you're not going to college and you're not sure what's next, you fail to launch. So you're sitting at home, you maybe have a part-time job, but you're mostly hanging out and playing, Minecraft at home or, whatever you're playing, video games, but you're not meeting your potential. And I think the reason why this happens is because we as humans don't repeat stories that we haven't seen. And if you only hear one narrative and the narrative is you need to go to college to be successful, but that college is not your path, but you haven't heard any other narratives, it leads you into a narrative void. It leads you into a story where you go, I don't fit anywhere in this story, which creates its own set of problems when you feel that you can't find your fit in society. Yeah. So like we were like with high school, we're going to completely redesign high school. High school should be based around experiences and experiential learning. We call it marketplace adventures, where you get to go out and see people who are like you in these different realms, so that when you see people who are like you, maybe you're naturally an artisan, you don't have to wait till you're 40 and have a midlife crisis to decide you're finally going to build the business you want around being a craftsman. You don't have to wait till you're 40 and have your midlife crisis before you actually go, I'm going to build the business that I want to build. What if you could do that at 18? What if you saw people who were living what you knew in your heart, you're like created to do? What if you didn't have to wait? Because what we're discovering is that the university system by and large is failing. There's like a 15% success rate of people who go to college, finish college, and then actually use their degree in the area that they went to college for. There's very few people that are even working in that. So what we're discovering is that you're going and all you're actually doing is getting in debt, but you're not actually solving any financial problems, and you're definitely not finding solutions to creating meaning for your life in the world. If you want to create meaning in the world, you have to get into alignment with your passions, because when you're passionate about something, you will make a difference for yourself and for others. And so we were like, high school is this rewrite to initiate kids earlier into their dreams and passions so that they don't have to waste years and get crazy in debt in for school that doesn't actually the number is crazy. 15% of kids who actually go through college and work in the area that they got their degree in. Mm-hmm. So that's just total bunk. That's wasted money. Let's help kids discover their path sooner. And that's the whole concept behind Marketplace Adventures. Yeah. And I think our high school, honestly, is going to be, we're starting it small this year. We still have space, by the way. But, I think it's going to be one of the most innovative things we've done because of how we've shaped it.
Yeah. And again, I think you think of your photographers or your writers and, strong literature folks. Let's get you involved with Active NorCal, and you guys can be showcasing what's in your backyard. Like there's so much opportunity to create experiences for people to like hone in on what they're good at, or realize I thought I wanted to do this. I've now done it. That's actually not for me. So it can really, give you that kind of research and development time frame to just figure it out. But again, figure it out early on where you can minimize kind of the dead space.
And the other part is, for artisans and entrepreneurs, I think that there's a real scarcity mindset that gets baked in to kids and adults. The idea that there's not enough. Well, I just got to tell you, you don't have to go to 4 years of college because there's not enough so that you're the very, very, very best. That's the only way you're going to survive. Like the truth is there's 7 billion people. If you want to start a business and you're willing to serve people, chances are likely that you can be successful, and you don't have to go and get $200,000 in debt to do it. You can do that sooner, and you can do that out of your passion. But the difference between a person who's successful young and a person who's successful older is generally, have they seen this pattern before? Because if they've seen it, they generally can find a way to repeat it if it aligns with their passion. Yeah. We want to give kids the narrative where they can go, whoa, that artisan, that's me. I talked with a lady who, she just retired. She made hundreds of thousands of dollars doing very high-end glass etching. She was doing it for hospitals. She was doing it for hotels. But what she told me, she said, Aaron, I love what you're doing with the school. She said, I wish I would have had what you had. She said, I went to college. I was a total artisan and I knew it, but I'd never met anyone who was an artisan. So she said, I spent all this money on university a long time ago. And then she said, I raised all of my kids and I didn't start my career until I was in my mid 40s. She's like, I didn't do what I was created to do until I was in my mid 40s because I'd never seen it done. And she said, I started doing it as a hobby. And by random chance, someone hired me to do it. And so she's like, I wish I would have known I could have done it earlier because I would have been so much more successful.
So Zach, if you haven't noticed, we're a little passionate about what we're doing.
No, that's great. I know you guys are somewhat new. I mean, you said you started in September.
Yeah.
I'm curious how much you let your students influence both your curriculum and your adventures. And this is why I ask you, have you guys ever heard of the Malting House School?
No,
it's in Cambridge. It was created in the 1920s by this guy named Geoffrey Pike. And he was a British spy in World War I. And he ended up, he had this terrible experience as a child in school. So he started this school where he created basically this big area with everything you could think of. You know, they had a garden and they had science stuff and they had, you know, woodworking, and they just put their kids right in the middle and let them do whatever they want, and then explained it to them as they're doing it, right? And a kid might go to the garden and you teach them about it, and then they don't want to go back there the next day, right? And it's completely up to them. Now, it completely revolutionized, you know, British schools, and that's why it came to mind with you guys. So how much do you, and again, I know you're young, and so you don't necessarily hear as much yet, but how much do you let the kids sort of dictate what they want to do?
So there's a little bit of that Montessori vibe to what we're doing, you know, so all of our, whether it's learning center, adventure programs, creative programs, you know, it's all skills-based learning. So we do have set dynamics of skills for whatever topic it is that we're teaching the kids. But to your point, you know, there is a huge overlying dynamic of empowerment and leadership for these kids to step into. So we create the structure and foundation to kind of sandbox pretty well, where there's moments that has a little bit more rigor where we're teaching the skill. But then as far as now them having time to kind of marinate in the learning, to practice it, to do some teach backs to each other's, and then to gamify it, it does create opportunities for these kids to have the freedom and empowerment to kind of self-select how they learn it. But knowing, you know, we always have a purposeful goal and application in mind for what we're doing.
And the best way to describe, so what you described that guy created got developed further, and they call that Montessori learning. So it's kind of immersive, hands-on. All right, guys, here's some things that you can do. You get to decide, and you manipulate it, and you learn, and a lot of project-based learning. I would say that we're more of what we're calling a STEAM program. So science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So we've created an environment where the experiential learning, it happens around this idea of STEM plus arts. You know, so you might have heard of STEM learning. We just call it STEAM because we're adding the creative arts in there. But what that does is it allows you to engage in science, technology, engineering, math, and arts. It allows you to engage in an experiential way. And that experiential learning is the place where there's a lot of play, a lot of place for kids. I don't mean play as in tag. I mean a lot of place for them to get creative.
To try, to fail, to try again.
Real
life dynamics.
And where then they that's their sandbox where they get to explore and discover. And then our staff gets to be guides along the way and support them in that.
Yeah. Because you think like life in general, like a lot of times for roadblocks, either in your formal corporate world, in your personal life, relationally, you know, things don't happen because you don't necessarily have the support system, the inner circle to like champion you or to kind of mentor you and walk you through the process. So you create these boundaries or hurdles on disqualifying yourself before you even take a first step. So, you know, for us, and really also kind of is how I played it out with the 330. You know, on paper, I wasn't qualified to run 330 miles. And then 2 months later, bike pack 700 miles. But for me, that was kind of the first, you know, dream bigger and go for it dynamic on just because what's on paper may not validate what you're doing, but what's in your heart and the inner circle of champions that you've built around you is what should hopefully activate you to step into it and just to give it a shot on if you fail. Cool, you're going to have some learnings, and failure isn't really going to be true failure because you actually tried it. So for us, in the kind of soil that we're creating at the Academy is that kind of environment where, again, people can have the freedom to try things, fail, even though it's not really failure, but have those learning, teachable moments to empower them. So now when you hit the streets in real life, you've already now have the critical thinking, the confidence, the courage, the grit, the resiliency to get through those and get through the real life hurdles more so than just, okay, I need to study and cram for a test to get a score.
Yeah. And I mean, in the test and the score thing is not real life. So there are tests in life, But the tests in life are things that pull out your need for grit. Tests are the things that pull out. The real tests in life are the resilience, your ability to bounce back. Multiple choice tests don't account for grit or resilience because there's no way for them to. You got the answer right or wrong. That's very binary, up or down, in or out, right or wrong, and the problem is that life isn't like that. There's a lot more gray in life. There's a lot more of, I got that wrong, I get to try again. You go to work and you discover, well, that didn't work. Well, that doesn't mean you're fired the next day because you didn't pass the test. What it means is you need to show up tomorrow and you need to try and do something different and try again until you figure it out. And so that resiliency and grit, that's why I love working with Ryan, is that's like this is the essence of who Ryan is. It's like grit and resilience to the max. Mm-hmm. Well, what if you could create an entire school that teaches kids and helps embed grit and resiliency into them? What businesses are they going to create? Mm-hmm. What things are they going to be able to do? Because they learn that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to give your best effort and learn and then try again the next day. And that's what the school's largely about. We need a whole generation of kids who know how to not give up when things get tough. We need a whole generation of kids who know how to get back.
We've grown soft as humankind. Yeah. And we've lost the ability to have healthy conflict on we shouldn't always agree on everything, because then that inserts complacency and lukewarmness on people just afraid to actually voice the opinion and have real conversation and ask the whys and build it out. So it's like, if we want to change culture and generations, it starts with our youth, and it starts with equipping them with the right tools to be able to have these conversations, to be able to unlock their mind and their creativity to create things.
And the corporate world knows this.
Yeah.
I like the corporate world, the highest achieving businesses and corporations, they have people that function in environments where iron sharpens iron, where they actually expect there to be disagreement. They expect people to push back, because those are the environments where you get the sharpest edge, where you get the greatest advantages come out of places where your ideas have been tested and pushed against, and where you've had to reform your ideas, because that's where innovation comes from. The problem is our schools have no room for people to push back against ideas. There's no room for people to challenge things. And because of that, we're doing an entire generation a disservice, because they're not getting the skills that they need to actually go out and be successful in the world.
And then again, for like NorCal specifically, it's then rooted in an appreciation for nature and for the outdoors and outdoor recreation. So if you want to have a landscape that is sustainable, that your kids can now enjoy the fruits of what we have, we need kids that actually have an appreciation for that.
Yeah, because you can't just throw them into a corporate room and then go, hey, figure this out now. No, but you throw them in a situation where they're having to be some of these situations, you have to imagine, how many kids do you know that have just gone out and done archery? Almost none. How many kids have gone out and ridden horses, a big, 1,200-pound animal? Almost none. How many kids have really gone out and done paddling and been on a river that's flowing and knowing that you could drown? Almost none. So there's all these kids that are getting experiences for the first time that positions them to be humbled, to have to learn, to rely on each other and their team, to be able to communicate. There's all these pieces you don't even realize that are happening as we're just being active and teaching kids the power of their environment. And then most importantly, it creates people who have a lifelong connection to the outdoors, which means we're going to take care of it in the future. And we're also going to see it as valuable for the next generation.
Yeah. Yes, 1,000%. So you guys are located in Redding now. Do you have any plans to expand in the future?
We do. So we have kind of our roadmap is we have the next 12 months under our belt now that we've added high school that we're going through. We will be cutting ribbon on a 15-acre campus in Anderson that the local academy will be at. And then in 18 months, we're looking to scale outside of Northern California, both in other parts of California, but take it outside of go into Southern California, but also take it outside of California.
We have had people just that have been following us on social media. You know what's crazy about the school? We have not spent any marketing dollars. Our school has grown from 40 kids to right now we're over 200 kids in enrollment for next year, just by word of mouth. So what's fascinating is people are catching wind of this and going, that's the environment I want my kid in. But we've had people from across the United States that have been following us just on social media, reaching out and saying, how do we get you here? Yeah. How do we get you to Texas? How do we get you to North Carolina? How do we get you to Florida? How do we, so people are hungry for this right now, because every region, it's not just NorCal NorCal is pretty amazing. I don't want to understate NorCal, but people from across the US are going, we recognize that our kids are missing something by being put in a box and treated like mini university students all day long.
Yeah.
They need experiential learning. And as the parents, by the way, because we are homeschool collaborative, you have the most flexibility of any parent possible. Why? Because it's a homeschool curriculum. So if you decide as a family, you want to go travel for a month, or you guys are going to go visit grandma and grandpa in Southern California, you literally just take your work with you, and then you come back and join us when you're ready. That kind of flexibility is incredible for families, especially those, you business people that are working hard. Maybe you own your own business and you want to take off a month and you're going to go work somewhere else. Well, you don't have to stop your life. It just gets to go with you.
Yeah. I know one thing I did want to make mention, which I think you'll enjoy, especially when we can turn it into a formal live event once some of the shenanigans move beyond what is going on right now. But California Adventure Games. So we are launching it.
Tell me about that.
Yes.
I read about that.
Okay, yeah. So the sole purpose, it will be a live event. We'll do all the things in person, but for the interim, so it's our main, so we turned on a nonprofit. So knowing the goal of the Academy is to not just be, for financial well-off folks, but we want to be able to have zero financial barriers for our families and for our kids that we can bring into the Academy. So we have Rooted Legacy Adventures that we turned on as our nonprofit, so we can go after some sustainability stuff, but most importantly, our scholarship fund, so we can start to subsidize and scholarship kids into the Academy. That we have about 60 kids right now on our wait list that we're looking to fill that bucket to bring them in. So our first effort to do that is the California Adventure Games. So we created a book out of it for this rendition. So we are, you think of Northern California, Shasta County, Siskiyou County, all the, top 12 counties, put it into 4 buckets. So trails, water, alpine, and sportsman. And so with those 4 categories, we then have 2 challenges per category that the teams of 4 will be participating in. So from biking to hiking to archery to fishing to rock climbing, they will now purchase our Adventure Games book, and it will have 2 levels, a pioneer level. So that's more your novice, family friendly, kid friendly participants. We then have a rogue level, so that's more intermediate. You're maybe a little bit more competitive in nature in what you do. So your teams of 4 would have those different tracks, and you would spend the 2 weeks competing those challenges where we'd be capturing times and scores and would have a winner at the end of it. Knowing, forward thinking, this will be an in-person super epic event that will have the California Adventure Games, where again, it's a flavor of the Academy, but also a flavor of the demographic that we live in, that now all these people get to try all these experiences that maybe they've never done before in a fun, competitive, relational way.
And the only thing that you need to be able to be a part of the Adventure Games is you need a 4-man team.
Yep.
You sign up, we send you the book. Yep. And then you have from July 31st to August 15th to complete these 8 events. And then every single event corresponds to a Strava link, so that when you do that, Strava tracks your numbers basically. It tracks how long it took you to complete it. And then you upload those, and then you can see your active leaderboard. So it'll be really fun for our rogue group, the really competitive guys. They're going to be able to look out and go, okay, we had a paddle in the river. We had a paddle at Whiskeytown Lake. And the leaderboard is this. We got to beat this time. So in that 2-week period of time, their goal is to beat that time. Then they've got a rock climb. They've got archery. So it's pretty diverse, because if you think about it, there might be people who are really good at running. And that's the trails component. There might be people who are really good at archery, but how many people are good at running and archery? So the teams, it's going to be pretty diverse. It's going to be really fun. And
all of our proceeds are going to the scholarship fund. So the sole purpose of this is to scholarship kids into the academy.
Yep. Yeah.
Which again, we have a wait list of 60 kids.
This is full circle for you, Ryan. This is
I
full
know.
circle. Bring it all back to the beginning.
I know.
I love it. I love it. It's really cool what you guys are doing. So if anyone wants to inquire about enrollment, where should they go?
Yes. So if you go to www.californiaadventureacademy.com, you'll see all the information for the academy piece. You'll see a page for the California Adventure Games that you could sign up to partake in that and donate. It'll all be on the website. You could email me at ryan@californiaadventureacademy.com, and we would love to talk.
Yeah, I think it's really cool what you guys are doing. And, this terrible, year and a half we've been dealing with, it has bred innovation. And I think as crappy as it's been, we can at least look to that and say, maybe we can come out the other side better, right?
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys, Ryan and Aaron. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope to talk to you guys again when you have a huge school coming out. Hopefully in the next couple of years.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it, man.
All right.
Cheers.
All right, big thanks to Ryan and Aaron for coming on to the podcast. We got a little deep into education theory, which is fascinating. They're really enthusiastic guys on the topic, and I am too. I don't have kids, but I do believe that there has to be some better way that we teach children, right? That the school system we have, it certainly isn't perfect, and I think we should always evaluate it and look to improve kids' lives the best way we can.
Well, as you mentioned at the end of that meeting, it was actually after we stopped recording, talked about how both you and myself didn't actually graduate high school, especially the normal way. We both ended up finishing what was the academic side of high school. You got a bachelor's degree. I have a master's degree.
Bob always likes to say he has a master's
but
degree.
yeah, I mean, there's so many ways of learning outside of the normal traditional, go to a public school. And so I see 200 students and counting enrolled for their next upcoming year. That's going to go up. That's absolutely going to go up. I see a lot of people in this area really liking what they're representing and kind of the things that they're doing. So.
Well, and quite frankly, I can see why a parent would be like, you know what, I'm going to sit back and wait and see how they do this and not enroll the first semester. But now that they have this work that they've done and they can show exactly what they're doing with the kids. And not only that, they're producing videos of what the kids are doing in the outdoors. What school shows you what these kids are doing day in and day out and smile on their faces and everything?
They have a great infrastructure. Aaron Hayes clearly has a background in this. So it seems like they did this the right way. And again, I think it's just going to grow.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of memories of school growing up, and not many of them are sitting in the classroom, right? They're either having one-on-one conversations with teachers, or they are going on field trips, or being in the principal's office. That's it.
Yeah, I got kicked out of high school.
I mean, there's just a lot of memories that I have that are not in the classroom, and it goes to show that maybe we should get kids maybe a little bit out of the classroom. But I also understand the restraints of the budgeting of school. So anyway, they're doing cool things, so go check them out, California Adventure Academy.
Also, now that I'm thinking about it, this is the 20th year since I got kicked out of high school. I got kicked out in 2001. So shout out to me on my 20-year high school kick out.
Yeah. Good job, Bob.
Maybe I should have a party.
Good job, Bob.
Mask
Man,
off.
you're no,
I'm an education advocate, okay? I really am.
I was gonna make fun of you, but
Go for it.
It's no.
Think I can't take it?
Well, we got some education for our audience
Let's
today.
go.
So we did. Was it 2 weeks ago? We did the legends, the top 10 legends of Northern California, and certainly there were a couple that we didn't include, and we didn't include them because we didn't think they made the top 10 list. But
I think we should do this because there are several stories. I think we should do this from the bottom to the top.
okay, well let me just explain it real quick. So since our top 10 legends, I personally found a bunch more, and this was just I stumbled upon this, and in my normal day, I'm just kind of cruising around different stories around Northern California. That's, we create content, so you got to find different inspiration for content. And I came across this Travel Channel TV show called Mysteries of the Outdoors. And it's a crazy show. You probably didn't watch the show, did you?
No, I didn't have time. You sent me this like an hour ago.
I did not send it an hour ago. I sent it at like 6:30 this morning.
7:30.
So anyway, there's this entire TV show called Mystery of the Outdoors, and they did an entire episode on Lassen Volcanic National Park. Don't ask me how I found this.
It's cool. That in and of itself is cool.
It is. I maybe I should have you watch the show. It's because it's only like 20 minutes.
Oh, I'll totally watch it. I'll watch it later.
And we could go through it next week because it's pretty funny to watch. But so there are a few different stories that they go deep into on this show in Lassen that are paranormal, they're unearthly, they're all sorts of these weird words that you can say. So you want to start at the bottom.
Yeah. Because the top one's the one that I want to talk about the most.
Okay. Well, so how they are in this article is how they are in the show.
And you can find this article on activenorcal.com.
ActiveNorCal.com. The bizarre stories of paranormal encounters in Lassen Volcanic National Park. So should we take turns? Do you want to talk about this first one then?
Sure. So the first one that we'll talk about is an alien abduction that happened in 1990. Now,
wait, let's preface so there was this San Francisco woman who was just walking through the forest. I'll let you take it. I'm sorry. I messed that up for you.
So in 1990, a 31-year-old San Francisco woman was walking through the park and had this epiphany, this disturbing memory that just jumped back into her mind that made her drop to her knees and remember that as a kid when she was visiting Lassen Volcanic National Park, she was abducted by aliens, and they uploaded these memories of her future into her mind, and they did all of these things to her. And it wasn't until she went back as a 31-year-old adult that she remembered these, again, brought her to her knees.
She had this deja vu.
Deja vu is exactly what it was, I'd say.
Yeah.
And that's what she's saying. They uploaded future, memories into my mind. That's just deja vu. I saw a black cat that I swear I saw in a dream, 15 years ago. That's deja vu. And so I think that's what this is. But wild. This is very similar. These are all wild stories like this, where it's like, oh, I don't remember being abducted, but then they don't say what the difference is between when she thought she was abducted and as far as years. It could have been 25 years, let's say. She has no idea her whole life that she's been abducted until she goes on a hike in Lassen Volcanic and just has this epiphany and drops to her knees. Wild story.
This is one of this. There is a trend in all of these stories, and it's that no one can actually can prove him right and wrong.
Well, right. They're all absurd in that. And I love that about them.
This lady, she's just walking through the park, and this is why I want you to watch the TV show, because they actually reenact
it. Yes.
Oh my God!
They put
And
at
she
the
comes
bottom
all
a
these
dramatization.
She has all these visions and basically walking through this hike in Lassen. She remembers that they abducted her when she was a child, and she said they were aliens, and she remembers the pain of the what they were doing to her so well that's why she remembered it. She said there were humans in the spaceship as well working on her. So it was really weird, and they ended up like uploading all this stuff to her, which apparently doesn't mean anything because she forgot it anyway. So, this one hike through Lassen brought back this traumatizing memory. And so who knows? And quite frankly, I don't know where the story came from. So all of these stories, I went and actually searched where they came from, and some I could find and some I couldn't.
Which ones could you? Well, we could talk about that at the end, but I'd love to hear some that you found any information on.
Well, this next one coming up is where I did find some information, and we can debate on whether it's factual or not. Okay, so the second story, underground society in Lassen Volcanic National Park. So in 1946, two friends were exploring the park and went into a cave. And this isn't in the article, but according to the show, they were looking for bat guano. They were looking for, and so maybe they were scientists. I don't know.
Ace Ventura?
Is that
what nature calls?
It's guano. Guano.
Yeah.
So they went into a cave, and it doesn't say what cave or what, but in the reenactment, it actually looks like
Pluto.
No. What's it called? The cave in Lassen Volcanic, or the cave in Lassen National Forest. It's not actually in the national park; it's in the forest. And so they're walking around and they're looking at stuff, and all of a sudden, three men appear out of the darkness. And these guys have flashlights, and the other guys don't.
Another thing that you might when they were descending into this, the walls smoothed out.
The floor smoothed out.
I
thought
that was cool.
They noticed that the floor was smoothing out as they're walking deeper and deeper. And so these three guys show up. They don't have flashlights. They just walk up, and it's funny because in the reenactment, these guys are like business cash. They're wearing like button ups. I think they tucked their buttons ups into their jeans. It was a really weird reenactment. So according to these two guys in 1946, they basically blocked access to the cave, and they stopped the men in their tracks. And one of these three weird men that came out of the cave said to them, "Are you surface people?" Which is obviously an odd thing to say. Then the three men escorted the hikers back to the mouth of the cave and told them to never come back. Now, what was said during the process of all this makes no sense.
There's a lot of things in this that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yes. So they found this story it was an article posted in the 1946 December issue of Amazing Stories magazine. So who knows if it's real or not, right? The author of this could have just made this up or heard of this. It's like this weird cartoonish looking magazine where they're talking about UFOs and stuff. So who knows? According to this show, some believe it's an underground society of some sort of humanoid living underground in Lassen. Some think it's reptilian people. Reptoids is what they call them, and they took human form to escort the people out. Others believe it could be a secret military base within the underground workings of the park.
I think a lot of this is just straight up stolen stories from Mount Shasta. I mean, we talked about how, the underground societies of Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is the much bigger brother of Mount Lassen.
But it does make some sense because the two are so close, right? It's like if there are Lemurians and aliens and reptilian people in Mount Shasta, it kind of makes sense that they would be in nearby Lassen too, right? It's like, hey, we're out of space in Mount Shasta, but there's a volcano for you to hang out.
I love that you just willy-nilly. Well, if we got random aliens living under this mountain, there might as well be some under this mountain as well.
Both active volcanoes.
Both potentially reptilian in origin.
Although Lassen does not get the lenticular clouds that clearly cover the spacecraft that come into Mount Shasta. So that's that story.
Yeah, next one is about UFO sightings. We talked, UFOs, reptilians, monsters. This is where all these kind of weird stories come from. One 1 December night, 1976, Clint and Jane Chapman were in their mobile home near Lassen when they began hearing a bizarre sound outside. They went outside, they saw a UFO, and then that UFO just kept coming back.
Just kept coming back to their mobile home.
To their mobile home, because clearly that's like where they should be. And then my favorite part about the story, and
It's so funny.
Cannot wait to watch this in the dramatic reenactment. Fed up with their unearthly visitors, the Chapmans concocted a plan to stick dynamite on the UFO's typical landing spot to blow it up, although they never did see that UFO again after that plan was concocted. So, I think a lot of this, and I don't want to get it. No, I'm not going to.
Well, it's almost like they wanted to. We were so fed up with this UFO, we actually got dynamite. It's like, okay, you could buy dynamite, without seeing a UFO. This was like the shortest story in the thing because it's really all it really is just two people living in a mobile home saying, yeah, we get UFOs here all the time.
Not to get too ahead of myself, but I feel like all of these stories are just like two people sitting around like, what if we, and then they just make up a story.
Correct. There's no one that can correct their story. There's no one that can corroborate. Correct. So
we're gonna have to come up with a story like that one of these days.
But it's funny because they're just like, yeah, and then she bought dynamite, and you get to the edge of your seat, and you're like, holy, and then they're like, and that was that. Like, okay, she bought dynamite. Good for her. Okay, so the last one is, and by the way, a lot of people think in the show they have all these like alien or paranormal experts or whatever that like bring all the stories together and say it's one big conspiracy. So the first story you see in this show is this guy Saul Vasquez, and he is actually on the show being interviewed. So I mean, he
might need to get him on the pod.
he was so adamant about telling his story. So in the summer of 2015, so just recently, according to Vasquez, he began hearing these loud noises on the trail that were so, they weren't animals, they were so loud, they were like making him collapse. They were bringing him to his knees. And he was hiking with this other person, the other person didn't hear him, right? Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a reptilian humanoid appeared to him on the trail in Lassen. Guess what? His partner saw or heard nothing, and he's like, what the hell's going on? Vasquez just began sprinting back the other way down he's hearing these noises, he's seeing, reptile humanoids, and in the reenactment, it's just this guy wearing a normal hoodie, but he has a reptile face. And in the show, Vasquez says, and I quote, I think Lassen Volcanic National Park is malicious. It has a will of its own. It's beautiful, it's nature, but it has its own agenda. Such a great quote. So that was it. And he actually came on the show and told his story, even though he sounds like a complete nut job.
So this is absolutely my favorite of these stories of the legends of Lassen. Not just my favorite of the stories. This might be my favorite story of all time. Two people go on a hike. This one guy is like, bro, you can't hear that? No, I can't hear anything. Bro, you can't see that? It's a reptoid right in front of us. Sprints the other way and is to this day holding that story as its fact.
He is telling national television directors.
I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to go on a hike with you and then just, this... Saul, come on the pod. Let's talk about this. But I think it would be the funniest joke of all time if you just had a plan where you're going hiking with a buddy and you're like, you know what? I'm going to pretend that I see a reptoid today. I'm going to do it. I'm going to live it. I'm going to pretend like everything is happening in real time. It's going to be hysterical. And now we're going to make national news and probably an internationally televised television show.
Of course, all the comments on this article were, I'll take what that guy's having. Like, what's he on? Because I'll take some of that.
I can just imagine what this guy's hiking partner was like. What are you doing, bro? What is What is wrong with you?
And they never hung out again. That's like would you hang out with a guy like that?
I mean, again, I'm trying to get Saul on the pod. So the answer to the question is yes. Saul, I want to be your best friend. I want to ask you all of the questions. He probably is now doing a lot of research on this topic because fascinates him. I'd love his input on Mount Shasta and the paranormal activities going on over there.
Yeah, it's just funny, So I saw this TV show exists, and I'm like, okay, what evidence? I'm so stoked to hear this evidence. So stoked to hear the story. It's a dude that has a friend right next to him that sees none of it, hears none of it. It's like, this is evidence? What? Nonetheless, fascinating because there are these multiple stories in Lassen, and bringing it all together, these people on the show, these paranormal experts, these UFO experts, whatever, they say that aliens, who are also reptilian humanoids, are using the base of Lassen to concoct their plan to take over the world. The end. That's it. So anyway, these were stories that legends, quote unquote legends, that I found literally like 2 days after we did our Legends podcast. So we wrote it up on the website. You can go check it out, and you can actually go if you have a subscription to, like, I think it's Discovery or something, then you can watch this full episode on the show Mysteries of the Outdoors.
And if any of you out there have any reptoid or UFO encounter stories with Lassen let us know. Shoot us an email. We will put you on the pod. We will give you your 15 minutes of fame on this podcast. We would love to talk with you again. Saul Vasquez, hit me up. Let's go.
As prominent as all these legends are, I've never actually, and all the people I talk to all the time, I've never actually heard of someone, being able to corroborate any of these stories. So,
which is the best part about all of these.
Which is the best part. Yeah. You can't prove them. Mm-hmm. You can't prove them. And quite frankly, all the legends that we went through, by the way, if you haven't heard our Legends podcast, go back. It's electric.
Fire episode.
These are the most ridiculous ones. These are the most ridiculous stories of all. Right. So anyway, had to go back, had to do these Lassen legends. So that's it.
Update over.
That's it for the podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Talking NorCal podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check out our YouTube page, Talking NorCal. We post the full episodes there, as well as highlights of each episode on the Active NorCal YouTube page. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You know where we are. Go give us a follow, subscribe. We really appreciate the support. These episodes are growing week in and week out, and we're stoked to be in your eardrums and be in your eyeballs every single week, bringing you these fun stories and new news articles of the week. So have some fun. California's open. Celebrate responsibly. We're back to normal, baby. Let's do this. And remember, stay active.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to kick it down in Santa Cruz. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little mental when we visit Sacramento. Yeah, we're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we protect nature's bounty when we visit Humboldt County. Yeah, we're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and me, I'm hella cool 'cause I live in Sebastopol. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and you know that we got